as normal, those of you that have been here before, thank you for coming back. I know I'm not an easy guy to listen to for an entire day, especially when this is as close to finish as I get. And it's not even close. But I appreciate you all being here. And for those of you who have been here before, or even if you haven't, feel free to ask questions at any point in time you want. Don't wait for me to stop talking, otherwise you'll never get a question asked. I will be here all day, so at breaks, if you want to ask questions, that's fine too. I'll guarantee you right now, I'm not going to know all the answers to all the questions you guys didn't ask, so I've got a sheet of paper, I'll write down questions and I'll get answers, I'll get it back to Panu, and he'll get them posted on your guys' website or whatever he does for that. So anyway, it's a pleasure to be here, and hopefully you have a great day. So we're gonna talk about ConfigNet 2012 Service Pack 1 throughout the entire day today. So my first question is, how many of you guys are currently running ConfigNet 2012 in production environments? Oh, very good. A very good percentage. So you guys have a ton of great things to look forward to with Service Pack 1. It's got a lot of new features, a lot of great new capabilities we got in the product, and you'll see a number of those, the vast majority of those, in slide decks and what demonstrations we can do for you today. How many of you are running ConfigNet 2007 in your production environments? Okay, you guys don't know what you're missing by being in ConfigNet 2012. Big step up from what you guys have today to the ConfigNet 2012 platform. And then obviously you'll see the major changes even from the RTM of ConfigNet 2012 to ConfigNet 2012 Service Pack 1. So you'll see a lot of great benefits and reasons why you want to get off of the old technology onto the new platform as soon as you can. How about SMS 2003? Any SMS 2003s out there? Nobody? Or are you just embarrassed to say that? Don't be shy about it, because every place I've been, this is my third location on this trip. London, there was a few people with SMS 2003, and in Amsterdam on Monday, there was still people with SMS 2003. So, anybody want to fess up yet? No? Okay, and I have to ask, SMS 2.0? No, good. And I have to ask, because 2 years ago in Copenhagen, I didn't ask about SMS 2.0, and somebody came up to me afterwards and said, you didn't ask about mine. Well, we don't support that anymore. Well, we still have to use it. Okay, very good. So everybody's got a configuration manager background, and I know even if you were SMS 2003, it's still enough of a background so you'd be in good shape. So, okay. So I'm not really going to talk about the RTM product at all today. I'll make some references to here's what you could or couldn't do in RTM, and here's how you do things now in the new product. So is anybody playing around with the beta of Service Pack 1 yet? A couple of hands. Okay, very good. Okay, so Service Pack 1 beta has been out since I think the middle of September or early September. So it's been out for a 3 months now. It's gotten great feedback from people. Of course, in the beta release of the product, it's not perfect. Yeah, even those of you that are running ConfigNet 2007 or ConfigNet 2012, those versions aren't perfect either. But certainly a beta version is not perfect. I'm going to be demonstrating a later release than beta. It's certainly not RTM yet. And it's pre-release, so there could be an issue. The console crashed on me once in Amsterdam on Monday. But other than that, it seems to be pretty stable. So I'll show you as much as I can. I'll try and whip through my PowerPoints as quickly as I can, still giving you a lot of good information, but I want to try and do as much demo as possible. I think that's a little more effective than just you guys sitting there listening to me and looking at slides. But I'll get these slides upon you afterwards, and we'll be able to get them to you guys. So again, at any point in time you have questions, go ahead and ask them. Don't be shy of asking a question in the middle of everybody else, thinking that they might think you're dumb for asking such a question, because I can guarantee at least one other person, if not half dozen or more, is going to have the same question. So feel free to do so. But if you're still too shy, go ahead and get me during one of the breaks or whenever and ask your question. So we want to make sure that you guys get as much out of this session today as possible. So, all right, so we've got 3 real presentations I'm going to do today on Service Pack 1 that Panu showed you. The overview presentation, and then one specifically on deploying and managing Windows 8, and then one on managing non-Windows platforms, which is something new we're adding into the Service Pack 1 release. But as a high-level overview, if you take nothing away from this presentation today, the #1 feature in Service Pack 1 is to support Windows 8 and Windows Server 2012 new operating systems.
Does.
Not for me, okay. No problem. I was thinking, okay, question already. I only got on the first slide, but that's all right. Those of you that are around with Configuration Manager or SMS from the days gone by, you know that I don't think we've ever had a service pack that was what a true service pack is. Just a roll up of hot fixes, like a Windows or a lot of other products, service packs. Ours always have new features in it, and we're doing a lot of new features in this product. But again, the number one reason for Service Pack 1 and the timing that it is to support Windows 8. And whenever in these slides we talk about Windows 8, we mean Windows 8 and Windows Server 2012. I'll try and keep making that distinction, but for the most part, it always is going to include Windows Server 2012. So I'm not going to talk a lot about that in this specific presentation, because the next presentation after the break is going to be specific on the Windows 8 and Windows Server 2012 presentation. So I'll give you a couple overview things here, then we'll cover it in more detail in the next one. And then we add support for non-Windows platforms in the product. So some of it directly in Configuration Manager 2012 Service Pack 1. Some of it requires integration with what the second bullet there talks about, Windows Intune. And we'll talk about that more in the presentation right after lunch, when we do the non-Microsoft operating system support. But there also is some native support built in for Linux, Unix, and Macintosh clients directly in the product. So, and then we'll just cover as many of the other improvements over the RTM product as we can in the time we have today. So, you guys have seen a slide like this when I was here the last couple of years. I've shown you slides that are basically like this. And this is what we call the 3 pillars of investment. The areas that we as a product group spent time and effort in improving the product. And we had this slide like this. We talked about these 3 pillars for going from ConfigMan 2007, all you guys can raise your hands the second time, to RTM products. And now we're going to have the same slide in here that's focused specifically on the SP1 release. So just as a recap for you, just to set the stage for RTM, empowering users, what we talked about there was the change in software distribution so that you as an admin can now target software to your users and be guaranteed that they'll only install on the appropriate computers, not on every computer that user logged on to. So changing software distribution from computer-focused to user-focused is what we talked about there for empowering users. And then for unifying your infrastructure, it was some techniques and new things in the product to help you reduce the size of your hierarchies. And I'll ask you guys a little bit later on, you probably don't have a lot of hierarchies here from years past when I've been here. I remember asking, there weren't a lot of hierarchies, but we did a lot of things in the product to help reduce the complexity of our environment. And we're doing some more things in there in Service Pack 1 to give you some more flexibility in that environment. And then simplifying administration, it was really about making the administrator console easier for you guys to use so that you can do your day-to-day jobs and not have to spend so much time figuring out how to do things in Config Manager versus SMS 2003 or Config Man 2007, and just make it more streamlined and easier for you to do your job. One of the big things in there was the client health feature, because you guys all spend a lot of time going out there fixing broken clients, because you can't patch them, you can't deploy new software to them. They report in as a client, but they're not operational, probably because WMI is busted, is the most common reason. And then SMS 2003, Config Man 2007, you guys spend a lot of time going out there troubleshooting and fixing clients. In the RTM product, Config Man 2012, we added in this client health feature where we would automatically scan your clients on a daily basis and fix those broken issues for you. So we're moving your client health percentage from 80 to 85% up to 99%, 97%, somewhere in there, without you guys doing anything. So helping simplify your administration. So that's the RTM product. Now we'll see these same 3 slides focused on the Service Pack 1. So starting with the empowering users, really what this is to empower the users to select whatever type of platform they want to work on and still be able to do their job within your organizations. So Windows 8, which we'll talk about in the next presentation quite a bit. We've got a real quick slide here on it for you. Windows 8 deployment. So those of you that have ConfigMan 2007 Service Pack 2, you've probably heard that we just released a hotfix in the past week, maybe 2 weeks now. I get confused when traveling. That gave ConfigMan 2007 Service Pack 2 support for Windows 8 and Windows Server 2012 as a client. So you get all of the normal Configuration Manager client functions on the new operating systems in your Configuration Manager 2007 Service Pack 2 environments. All except for operating system deployment. We don't support you deploying the operating systems with Configuration Manager 2007. In the Service Pack 1 release, we're giving you that full capability, including OSD support for the 2 new OSs. And if you haven't heard, I'll break your hearts right now, there is zero support for Windows 8, Windows Server 2012, and ConfigMan 2012 today. So the version of Configuration Manager 2012 you guys have today does not support the 2 new OSs, Windows 8, Windows Server 2012, at all. Not as a client, certainly not for OS deployment. So you either have limited support with ConfigMan 2007 Service Pack 2, or you're waiting for our Service Pack 1 to get the full support for your 2 new operating systems. Okay, we'll talk more about that in the next presentation. Windows 8 apps. New types of applications that you may create or purchase that you want to go ahead and deploy in your infrastructure to those Windows 8 clients. And we'll talk about the 2 different types of applications and how you can deploy them. Windows Embedded. Probably a number of you utilize Windows Embedded in your environments today. If you don't yourselves, on a daily basis, you probably interact with Windows embedded devices, whether it's an ATM, a cash register in a store, or something else. So we'll talk about how we've extended our product to encompass and help manage Windows embedded devices. And then heterogeneous devices, those non-Windows platforms that you want to go ahead and support and utilize and give you some centralized management capabilities for that you don't have today. Okay, so first Windows 8. Again, we'll talk a lot more about it in the next presentation, but for the most part, we don't care what the form factor is of the box. Windows 8 is an operating system. We're going to have support for it in the Service Pack 1 release. Again, the traditional Windows operating system, Windows 8, Windows Server 2012, full client features, all those different features, all great. And we'll talk again more later on about that. But what we're also adding in is what we call the fruits and aliens, the Apple and Android support. So the ability of putting clients on some of these new operating systems so that you can have much better, much more rich client support, including software distribution, more settings management of these devices through your Configuration Manager environment. And we'll talk about that more deeply in the 3rd presentation. Plus we'll talk about in this one, plus the 3rd one as well, a little bit of a Macintosh support, as well as Linux Unix client support. Okay, so Windows 8 devices, I'll talk, again, more about this in the next presentation, but full OSD support. If you guys know how to deploy Windows 7 or Windows XP with Configuration Manager today, you know how to deploy Windows 8. It's the exact same deployment process. We're just now giving you the capabilities of doing so because of the support for the new deployment tools, which is the assessment and deployment kit, which I'll talk about later on. There's some new things coming in Service Pack 1 that may greatly benefit you. Windows to Go is one of those. In essence, the ability of provisioning Windows 8 on a USB stick. So you can take Windows 8 on a portable stick with you, go over to another computer that's not running Windows 8, insert that stick, boot up off that stick, and you've got a portable version of Windows 8. Like a laptop now, it's just running off of a USB stick. You can provision that through Configuration Manager 2012 Service Pack 1. And then some new functionality we're taking advantage of that's specifically in the new operating system. Always on, always connected, and then metered internet connection support. And I'll talk about those more in the next presentation. But basically what those are allowed to do is to make Configuration Manager, what you'll hear in the next presentation all the time, is a better citizen. Trying to make us not a hindrance to your end users doing their work. That they don't know we're there. We don't drain their battery. We don't chew up the hard disk when they're trying to use the computer. We don't give you a large cell phone bill at the end of the month by utilizing your 3G and 4G connections for downloading software. So giving you a lot more control, a lot better interaction of our client agent with your Windows 8 computer so that we're not bothering the user as much. And again, we'll give you full details coming up. So Windows 8 and Windows Phone 8. So we are going to have support for Windows Phone 8 in Service Pack 1. That is going to be through this system we call the Windows Intune connector. So anyway, on the far left-hand side with purple, you see the different kind of bucket areas of where you want to do your management. And then the orange are your traditional feature sets that we provide for you today, whether it's operating system deployment, required software distribution being push-based, software updates, which generally is push-based as well, traditional applications, Win32 apps, those new apps, the Windows 8 apps, Windows apps in the Windows Store, and then more end-user capabilities like pull software distribution, verifying that the system is running within your corporate standards and compliant. And those all work on all the Intel platforms.
What is this SoC?
SoC is Intel System on Chip. So that's where I was going. We work on the traditional platforms being Intel x86 and x64. So your traditional laptops and desktops you might have. The Intel SoC System on Chip, its new hardware is coming out. You probably don't have it yet because it's brand new hardware coming out that will give you some capabilities that we'll talk about later on. The always on, always connected will be the first place where you'll see some of that always on, always connected will be in the Intel System on Chip, the SoC systems. But they're coming out first in the tablet type format, and then they'll get ported out to the laptop stuff. So anyway, you have all those capabilities on traditional Intel boxes. And then for Windows RT, which is running a different version of Windows, and then Windows Phone 8, you see the dotted blue area. Those are the things you can do with the Windows RT or Windows Phone 8 type environment. And you get that from our integration with the Windows Intune infrastructure. And I got some slides in our first presentation after lunch more about the Windows Intune integration. But with our Service Pack 1 and Windows Intune Wave D, the next release coming of Windows Intune, you'll be able to provide additional management capabilities, managing your devices through Windows Intune, but you can use your configuration management console to do that management. Even though the agent is talking to Windows Intune, you're doing all your management from your traditional console that you're using to manage all your x64 and x86 boxes, as well as the Macintosh Linux environment you have.
What about support on other Windows phones and Symbian phones?
Okay, so the question is support on older Windows phones like Windows Phone 7 or Symbian phones. So Windows Phone 7 has no management stack in it. So that's treated just like it is today, which is it goes to the Exchange Active Sync connector. So you get that limited support through Exchange Active Sync. We have got management stacked inside Windows Phone 8, so you will have the ability of putting a client agent on to get some additional capabilities that we'll talk about later on. The Nokia Symbian devices, the same scenario you have today with RTM. So if it's one of the supported models, there's a client agent you can install on it, you get what we call the depth management. So inventory, discovery, settings management, some software distribution to it, remote wipe, and so on. And we are adding a few new platforms in Service Pack 1. No new capabilities for the Nokia environment, but new platforms that we're supporting. Okay, we'll talk more about that stuff coming up. So the OS deployment scenario, same as you know today. We've added some new capabilities to OSD to make it easier for you to do some customizations and to control when your task sequences run. And I'll talk about that in the next presentation. It's on deploying and managing Windows 8. So I got a lot more details in there for you. One key component there for you is the second thing and right up on your slide where it says requires the Windows Assessment and Deployment Kit. Today when you guys installed, or not today, when you last installed Configuration Manager, whether it was 2007 or 2012, we installed the Windows Automated Installation Kit, the Wake, for you as part of our setup. So you installed your primary site server, we installed the Wake as part of that setup, unless it was already there. With Service Pack 1, or let me hold off there for a second. With Windows 8, there's no longer a Wake. As of Windows 8, the Wake goes away and it's been replaced by the ADK, the Assessment and Deployment Kit. So Wake is legacy, the ADK is the new stuff. With Service Pack 1, we're no longer allowed to redistribute the Wake / now ADK with our product. So where we say here it requires the Windows Assessment and Deployment Kit, that means that you guys are now going to have to manually install the ADK components before you can upgrade to Service Pack 1 or install a brand new Service Pack 1 environment. And I'll show you that process in the last demonstration I do today, after we get done with the heterogeneous environment in non-Windows platforms. So that last presentation, I'll walk you through the removal of the Wake, installation of the ADK, because that'll be your biggest stumbling block in moving from where you are today to getting to Service Pack 1. It's not a hard problem to overcome at all, but it's just something you've not had to do in the past, because we were able to supply the Wake with our product, and now we're no longer able to legally deploy the ADK for you. So. Okay, a couple other things in here. Again, we'll talk about later on. Windows to Go. Windows to Go is that portable Windows 8 on a USB stick. You can provision that through our OS deployment process and our application catalog if you choose to do so. Use Space BitLocker. That will help reduce your deployment time of a brand new computer. So today, if you deploy a new laptop, let's say, and it has a terabyte hard drive in it, it takes a long time before the end user gets to use their laptop, because you've got a BitLocker using it, the entire terabyte hard drive. And that takes hours to go through and do. With Service Pack 1, what happens is that we use Space BitLocker. So what we do is we only BitLocker the part of the drive that is utilized right now, which at this point in time is probably just going to be the operating system. And your operating system, let's say, is 10 gigabytes in size. That's a whole lot smaller than your terabyte drive. So it only takes a few minutes to BitLocker that 10 gigabytes of use space, and then the rest of it we leave unBitLockered. And then later on, once the computer's provisioned, the user installs apps, the user writes data, we then go and BitLocker as they're writing new data to the drive. So it's BitLocker on the fly as opposed to BitLocker all at one time. So again, it shortens the provisioning time for you to get that computer out to your end user. And it's supposed to be, the Windows team states that it's negligible on the end user as they're using it later on to write new stuff and BitLocker the drive. So it's not supposed to be performance at all. And then as part of BitLocker, we can use the TPM Trusted Platform Module and PIN if you want to as part of your BitLocker. And we have path sequence variables to go ahead and allow you to supply the PIN if you want to inside your path sequence. The same core scenarios for operating system deployment, those don't change at all. The same stuff you do today with OSD, you still do in Service Pack 1. They just now that it can include the Windows 8 environment and some of these new enhancements we have, and more things that we're doing that we'll talk about again in the next presentation. So I won't go on that now. Windows to Go. The two key things here are, again, it's great for the contractor scenario. So you have a corporate standard image that all your employees have to use to get on your corporate network. But you hire some vendors to come in there and do some work for you, some contractors, and you want them to have that same image. Well, today you have a couple of choices. Either they have to reformat their hard drive and put your image on there to be able to get on your corporate network, or you have to issue them a corporate laptop that they use when they're on your corporate network. Both of those have, obviously, drawbacks to them. Now what you can do is you can provision a Windows 8 to-go stick and give it to your contractor, so when he's on your corporate network, he plugs that in, boots up off of it, he's got your corporate Windows 8 image on it, all configured the way you need it to be, and it's running on his environment, or on your environment, but on his laptop. And when that happens, when you do that, you don't get to utilize your local hard drive at all. So you're running everything off that Windows to-go stick. And we treat that just like a Windows 8 laptop. So we'll put a client agent on it, it's done through OSD, we'll be able to manage it, you'll be able to deploy software to it, you'll be able to deploy patches to it, you'll even be able to tell that it's Windows to Go versus a locally installed version of the operating system. So very cool. But the nice thing is, besides what it gives you, it's very easy to create these. You do a couple things real quickly. You create a pre-staged media with your operating system, your Windows 8 image. You run it through a utility that we provide in our product to create this Windows to Go environment that takes your pre-staged media and it lets you build a package and program out of that. You then deploy that package and program to end users optionally or available, so it goes in the application catalog. And now you go to the application catalog where you find your software, you got a new program, piece of application there that's Windows to go. You click that, you stick in a supported USB stick, and we'll go ahead and provision that USB stick with Windows 8. So it's very, very simple. You use operating system deployment, a special utility we have, and your built-in portal for doing software distribution. And the end user can do their own provisioning of Windows 8, provided they have a supported stick. So very cool. We'll talk more about that in the next presentation as well. Always on, always connected. I'll give you a real quick summary here. We'll give you more details in the next presentation. Really what this is new capabilities in the Windows 8 operating system with new hardware, again starting with the Intel system on chipsets, to give you capabilities that will, the bottom line is to not impact the user's productivity. So some of the things in always on, always connected, help preserve battery life. So when you're on AC, do all your normal configuration manager stuff. Because you got power, we're not going to drain the battery because you're on power. When you're on battery and not power, if you're in a high battery state, great, go ahead and do all your normal config and stuff, you got plenty of battery life. But when your battery reaches low state, start backing off the configuration manager actions. Don't take inventory anymore. Because we don't want to be the guy that drains the batteries so the laptop dies because we were doing inventory. So our task starts suspending and being prevented being used when the battery is the low state or critical state, and we don't do anything. Network detection. The ability of detecting whether or not the computer's on the network. If you're on the network, great, go ahead and do your content location request. Go ahead and pull your policies. Go download that software. Go ahead and generate your inventory, report it out because you're on the network. But no sense trying to do those things if we detect the network's not there. No sense trying to pull policies from your MP, you're not going to get anywhere without a network. No sense trying to download software because you're not on the network. So again, it helps alleviate all those things that can cause bottlenecks in the computer that bother the end user. User idle time. So the ability of us detecting that the user's there or not. And if they're there using the computer, don't bother them with configuration manager tasks. Wait until the CPU's idle, the user's not there, and then kick in and do your inventory and those other type of tasks that you might have to have. Network connected. We talked about that. Windows maintenance hour. Windows maintenance hour is a new configuration of Windows 8 where there's a designated hour during the day, which actually defaults to 3 a.m., where your computer is supposed to perform all these maintenance tasks. And the Windows 8 team wants people to write their services so that they adhere to that Windows maintenance hour. And we did. Our client agent will do all of its scheduled tasks during that Windows maintenance hour on these Windows 8 boxes. So the hidden time, we get 3 a.m., computer will go ahead and do all these tasks. There's one other thing that we don't have on here. We have, and that's metered internet connections, unless I missed it up there. But metered internet connections is the ability of allowing you through Windows 8 to designate this connection to the network is a metered connection, being a 3G, 4G type wireless connection, where I have a limit on the amount of data I can transfer in a month. And you can tell the operating system this is a metered connection. You can then tell configuration manager, oh, if you see a metered connection for my laptop, go ahead and use it, or only use it if you hit the deadline for your application deployment, or don't use it at all, and wait until you're on a fully connected network. So that's, again, a Windows 8 feature that we can take advantage of. And you have some controls that designate who can and can't use metered internet connections when they're happen to be using that on their laptops. Application delivery, you guys all know, or at least those of you that are 2012 customers, you know how to do application deployment in Config Man 2012. Nothing changes at all. We still have applications, we still have deployments, we still have distribution points, you still create or import an application the same way. You still have all the same type of applications you could deploy. What we've done is we've added some new deployment types for new types of applications. Macintosh is a new application deployment type. There's a couple for iOS. There's a couple for Android. There's a couple for Windows Phone 8. There's a couple for Windows 8. The app V that you see here that we've had in the past, we have now 2 different app Vs. One for app V4 and one for app V5. Because they have different capabilities, different features to them, so they're different format of the sequenced applications. So we just added some new different type of software you can deploy now. And I'll show you that when I get into my demo. I'll show you what those new things look like. Now, specifically for Windows 8 apps, there's 2 different types of Windows 8 apps. There's the Windows apps that you can install locally from your configuration manager environment, they can get it from the distribution point, like you would from an MSI or executable, whatever. And there's also the apps that you would pull from the Windows Store. And you can install both those through Configuration Manager. So here you see a couple of devices at the bottom, a Windows 8 box and a Windows RT device. You can deploy applications, and Windows 8 is really about user-driven stuff. So you're deploying applications to the user, so you're going up to our application catalog as the self-service portal. So the end user goes to their browser, they go to load our application catalog, they find an application they want to install, MSI or Windows 8 application or whatever it happens to be, they go and click it, they click install, and it goes ahead and runs, if appropriate, for that device they have. So with Windows 8, you can now go ahead and generate these new applications called Windows 8 apps. Some people, they used to be called Metro-style apps. If you think about it, you have a phone, you have all these tiles on your phone. Windows 8, if you've seen the Windows 8 start menu, it's got all the tiles on there. So putting a tile-based application in this new modern UI, as it's called now. So those are the new type of applications you have. And I'll show you Windows 8 application deployment in the after our first break. But anyway, you can go ahead and deploy those to your devices through Configuration Manager. It's just a new type of application. It's a .appx file as opposed to a .msi file. And I'll show you how to create one and what they look like, what some of the requirements are. But you can do that. That process is called sideloading, where you are basically providing applications through your corporate infrastructure that get installed locally from your distribution point. The other type of application you have for Windows 8 is the Windows 8 apps in the Windows Store. The Windows Store is very much like you guys have probably used the Apple Store to get applications for your iPad or your iPhone, where you go to a web-based or cloud-based service, purchase an application from there, and it installs on your local resource. You do the same thing now with Microsoft through the Windows Store. Well, when you deploy an application from the Windows Store, you can go to the Windows Store and you can browse for the app, you can find it, you can purchase it if necessary, and install it locally on your device. Well, as a corporate environment, you don't want end users having to go to a catalog, being the Windows Store, browse for applications, click them, and go ahead and install them locally. You want to be able to control what applications they have access to. So what you can do is you can go ahead and go to that application catalog again, our self-service portal, where you have all your traditional corporate device or corporate applications that you're making available to your users. You can just publish your appropriate Windows Store apps in our application catalog. So now your end user only has one portal to go to. They launch their browser, they launch our application catalog, they see your corporately installed applications, Office, whatever it happens to be, or your in-house apps, and then they see any applications from the Windows Store that you think are appropriate for them. They pick the Windows Store application, which they don't know it's a Windows Store app, they just see an application area, they pick it, they choose install. What we do then is we redirect them directly to the Windows Store, where they would log in, and then they would install the app directly from the Windows Store. So just giving them one portal to look at as opposed to two different portals to look at. And I'll show you how you would configure a Windows Store application in the demo in the next presentation. Oh, here's a slide on metered internet connection support. I thought it was going to be about earlier. So metered internet connection support is, again, the 3G, 4G wireless cards. And we want to be able to be a good citizen so that we're not the people or the reason that you get what we call bill shock at the end of the month. Your cell phone bill is huge, way more than you expected, because you were installing applications through Configuration Manager. So again, you configure this through Windows 8 to say this is a metered connection. And then you configure in Configuration Manager who is allowed to use metered internet connections and how they're allowed to use them. And then you designate on your application deployment that, yes, go ahead and deploy this through a metered internet connection. So the OS tells us that it's a metered connection, and then we go ahead and restrict or allow access to it depending upon how you guys, as administrators, have configured our interaction with those. And I'll show you that when we get into our demos. User data and settings management. If you look down towards the bottom, you get the three types of things that we manage here: client-side caching, roaming, user profiles, and folder redirection. You guys can manage these today through your policies. So it's nothing new for you, because you can already do that. What we're allowing you to do is to, instead of using group policy, you can enable and configure these three features through the Configuration Manager console now but only for Windows 8 devices. And the reason that we can do it now, we couldn't in the past, is that Windows 8 exposes these components through WMI. And since they're available in WMI, we can now go ahead and configure that with our admin console and write the appropriate WMI components to allow that through policy down to your clients. So for other operating systems, you're still going to manage those through your policy. So you're asking, why do I want to do that at all with Configuration Manager then? And it's a traditional, the more you move to your Configuration Manager admins, the more you're removing from your admin, your AD guys, and the more control you have. You can get the things that get the clients that aren't AD joined, which you may not have all your clients AD joined, which obviously group policy requires. You get better reporting through Configuration Manager as the application of these, your compliance of these settings. These get applied at user logon time through Configuration Manager. So you have those capabilities if you want to take advantage of it. If you don't, you still manage it through your policy. Okay, Windows embedded devices. Again, you probably interact with these on a daily basis. Again, whether it's an ATM, whether it's a cash register, whether it's some medical equipment, robotics, whatever it is. You see a lot of these out there in the marketplace. You just don't know that they're running a Windows embedded operating system. I don't know if they have them over here in Finland, but over in the United States, we have these new Coke dispensers for soft drinks, and they're these big red ones. You press buttons, and it'll go ahead and build your different type of soft drink you want on the fly. And those are all running Windows embedded, Coca-Cola. So anyway, there's a number of those out there today. And if you want to manage them, since they're running Windows environments, you probably do. In today's environment, you have to run a separate product called Windows Embedded Device Manager. So it's a separate component you have to get. You use that to try and provide some centralized management of these type of devices. Our goal in Service Pack 1 is to help remove as much complexity as possible. So what we're doing is basically taking the Windows Embedded Device Manager product and pulling it into the Configuration Manager 2012 SP1 product. So that now you'll be able to manage these Windows Embedded devices natively through Configuration Manager without having to have that separate product, Windows Embedded Device Manager. The problem with your Windows Embedded devices, or the kind of restriction with them, is that they're generally in very small form factors. Now, I mean, they might be huge things, but as far as the hard drive, the image they're running, it's a very small lockdown image. Generally very, very small and tiny, and it's hard to make a lot of changes to them. And because they don't want changes made to those images, they have what they call write filters on them. So if any user was using a Windows embedded device and they happen to receive a software update or a piece of software, or they wrote their own data files there, the write filter would block it from being written to the hard drive, really. And then once you rebooted, all the things that were in that write filter are thrown away. So the write filter kind of like makes the hard drive read-only, a read-only hard drive. Well, you do have the capability today with the Windows embedded devices where you can turn off the write filter so that you can persist changes to that local image and then re-enable the write filter so the user's not making changes. In Service Pack 1, we've accommodated that scenario in our product so that whenever you do a deployment, there's a checkbox in the wizard for deployment software saying, do you want to persist this change in a Windows embedded device? So that will suspend the suspend the write filter, persist that change to the hard drive, then re-enable the write filter so end users aren't making unauthorized changes to the hard drive. So we have it for all the feature areas, software updates, application management. P&P is package and program. Packages and programs, path sequences, even endpoint protection. And it's especially important in an endpoint protection scenario because you want to get the current and updated definitions on the local embedded device so that they're protected from malware and viruses. So we have scenarios that allow you to, again, control the right filter to persist appropriate changes to that box so that you can go ahead and get them protected and managed the way you want to, whether it's through OS deployment or DCM or all the other feature areas. Okay, unifying your infrastructure. Really what that's about is making some changes again to give you more flexibility in your environment so that it's easier for you to design your infrastructure, to work with your infrastructure, and then do some protection of your infrastructure environment. Makes things better for you. Okay, so you've seen a slide similar to this as to what your environment looks like. So how many of you guys have a hierarchy today, more than one primary site? Nobody. Okay. Oh, one. Okay. He's almost shy. I'm not going to raise his hand. So as a general rule, I'm going to skip the CAS for a second. As a general rule, you guys all have primary sites, because primary sites are what's required to manage clients. And generally, the number one reason for having more than one primary site in an environment is scalability. A single primary site can handle up to 100,000 clients, which I'm sure the vast majority of you, if not all of you, can fit scalability-wise in a single primary site. We don't have that many customers worldwide that need more than one primary site because they have more than 100,000 clients. We do have. Microsoft, we manage almost 300,000 clients internally with Configuration Manager. So obviously we can't do that all in one primary site. Last number I thought was like 297,000, something like that. And we have customers that are larger than us that use Configuration Manager. So for those customers, you absolutely have to have more than one primary site. Other reasons why you might have more than one primary site: to reduce the impact of a single site failure. So let's say I have 50,000 clients. And if I have 50,000 clients, that all fits within one primary site, obviously, for scalability. And if all 50,000 are one primary site and that server has a hardware failure, well, then I'm impacting management of all 50,000 clients because they can't get to my primary site server to create new advertisements or deployments or software updates or whatever it happens to be. Where if I have two primary sites now and I split my load, so 25,000 clients managed by each, and one site server fails, then I'm only impacting half of my clients. The other 25,000 are still being managed by the primary site that they were working with, that they were assigned to. This failover thing does not mean that when that one primary site server fails, all those 25,000 clients, or whatever number it is, automatically start talking to the site server that's working. That's not what that means at all. Those clients stay assigned to that site that's failed, and you use our recovery technology to rebuild that system, get it back up to speed, so that you can now start managing those clients again. But it just gives you that capability. Some people want that. Political reasons. You have a corporation, two different departments in there, and they just don't trust each other. They don't like each other. They're not going to share the same stuff. They want to each want to have their own site environment to manage locally. So that's all necessary. Anytime you have more than one primary site, you have to have the guy in the blue on the left-hand side, a central administration site server. And the central administration site server is a special type of server you install first in your hierarchy. Then you install your primary sites and attach them to the central administration site server as part of setup. But again, for the vast majority of you, that is not really applicable since you don't have a hierarchy. Now, on the lower left-hand side under the CAS, this is an issue that we've been dealing with ever since the product released back in April of this year, primarily from consulting firms. I won't name names, but three initials come to mind, MCS. They would do what they call future-proofing your hierarchy. Even though you really only need a single primary site, they would state that in the future you either might grow or you might merge with somebody else to the point where you need to have another primary site. And because you can't add a CAS after the fact, you can't create a hierarchy out of a standalone primary site, we're going to give you a hierarchy today, even though you don't need it, so that you can then, in the future, if necessary, you'll have the hierarchy already there. So you would install a CAS and put a single primary site below it, which really doesn't make a lot of sense at all, other than the fact that they were allowing you to expand in the future. So MCS would do that for you. And some other people would. And we've taken that reason away in SP1, which we'll talk about here in the next slide. Now, the reasons you no longer have to have multiple primary sites that you might have had in 2007 or SMS 2003, the restriction or preventing the server guys and desktop guys from stepping on top of each other. Really hard to prevent that in Config Man 2007 or SMS 2003, so you set up different sites, one for desktops, one for servers, and each group would manage their own systems. And you have a simple site above that, so you get consolidated reporting and patching and so on. Now you can do that with a role-based administration to prevent the desktop guys and the server guys from stepping on each other. Different client agent settings. I want to have different inventory schedules, or different SMS def files, the type of stuff that gets inventoried, or different agents enabled versus disabled. Kind of hard to do without multiple primary sites. You have multiple primary sites. Now you have unique client agent settings. You can go ahead and configure on a per collection basis that will take precedence over your corporate-wide defaults. Language packs. In the old version of the product, we had a Japanese version of the product, or we had a German version of the product, or a Spanish version, or Chinese, or English, or whatever it was. So if you're a multinational company and you're in multiple different languages, you have to install different primary sites so that the installation was in the native language of the location the site was in. Now you no longer do that. Our product is all Unicode. It's all language neutral. You install a language neutral base, and then when you install your site server, it asks you what language do you want for your admin console reports? What language do you want for your clients? So that the UI, the user interface, pops up in localized language. But it's also the same code base that's being installed everywhere. Just a pack on top of it that you get to choose during setup time. And then the DMZ or DMZ internet facing scenarios. Most commonly in the previous releases of the product, you would put a primary site down in a separate forest, give you better management of the clients there because you want your clients going through your firewall to talk to your management point, distribution point up to your corporate headquarters. So you put a separate primary site down there, so it can be multiple primary sites. Now you can put a management point, distribution point, and even a software update point in Service Pack 1 down in that forest, so that you have all those clients to talk to the local resources as opposed to having to go through your firewall up. So all those reasons go away. Secondary sites really are there for remote locations that have a small number of clients, anywhere from a handful up to a few thousand, where you don't want to put a full primary site, and you want to manage the upward flow of the client traffic. So the client's inventory data, its status messages, and so on. Put a secondary site there so it throttles and batches up the transactions up to the parent primary site. Distribution points. Distribution points now have the ability of being throttled and scheduled so that you can control that downward replication where we used to use secondary sites, which you don't need to do anymore because we can do that now through the distribution points. Pre-staging, if you don't want to ship content over the wire, you can put it on a USB stick or hard drive, ship it out there, and they can install it locally without having to push it across the wire. It's very cool. And you can also support branch cache if you want to use that. Okay, so what's changed in SP1 as far as your hierarchy goes is that now you no longer have to do what we always call future-proofing your hierarchy. If you think you only need a single primary site, you can install a standalone primary site, and then in the later stages, you grow to where you need to have multiple primary sites, you can expand out to a hierarchy. So you install your standalone primary site, in this case Houston. And now I decide, okay, I need to have a hierarchy so that I can expand out with multiple primary sites. You can then install a brand new central administration site, and as part of the SP1 installation of the CAS, it'll ask you, is this the first site in the hierarchy, like you do in RTM, or am I going to attach to an existing standalone primary site? So this will let you create a hierarchy out of a standalone primary site. It'll go ahead and install the new CAS. It'll do all the global and site data replication, synchronization stuff. So those two sites will be in synchronization, just as if you installed the CAS first and then attached a primary site to it after during its install, like you do today in RTM. And now that you've got that hierarchy created out of that standalone primary, you can now go install another primary site, a brand new one, under the CAS and expand out your hierarchy. So now I've got more than 100,000 clients. I can install another brand new primary site and start creating more clients over that 100,000 client barrier, or political reasons or whatever else it is. Now what you can't do is you can't take two standalone primary sites like Houston and Miami and attach them together. So this is what we call the merger acquisition scenario. You guys have a standalone primary site. The company you're acquiring has a standalone primary site. And you can't attach both those into a new hierarchy. We don't have that flexibility. But what you can do is you can take the standalone primary site that you have, you can create a hierarchy out of it. Because you know you want to have another primary site, in this case down in Miami. But you can't attach it. But it's got a smaller number of clients, so theoretically fewer number of objects. So take the bigger primary site, create a hierarchy out of it, then go ahead and take that other standalone primary site you have, and use our built-in migration feature to migrate those objects from, in this case, Miami's standalone primary site over to this hierarchy you created. So migrate over all the collections, the packages, the applications, the OS deployment stuff, the software updates, whatever it is. Migrate all those objects over to your new hierarchy, the hierarchy you have. That'll get them all over there. Then what you would do is you would uninstall the Miami primary site, that's standalone. You'd reinstall it as a new primary site and attach it to the CAS as part of its install. Now you've got a CAS with two primary sites. Once Miami installs and then attaches to the CAS, it'll get all of its collections, all of its other objects back through normal replication. So it'll look like you just took the Miami primary site and attached it to your hierarchy. It just happens to be through a migration scenario, uninstall, reinstall. So the site attachment thing is a one-time, one-site attach. I can't do multiple sites. So it's still not as flexible as you guys that said SMS 2000 or config 2007 you have, where you willy-nilly pick and choose and uninstall and detach and so on. Here it's a one-time thing I can do to create a hierarchy that I can attach new, but I can do that merger acquisition scenario through the migration utility. So it does give you the flexibility of moving forward without having to take the expense today of a separate site server being my CAS, so hardware, OS license, SQL license, config manager license, and then only acquire those when you absolutely need them, as opposed to doing it just because you might in the future need it. This only works with Service Pack 1. So you'd have to take both those two standalone primary sites today, upgrade both of them to Service Pack 1, then you can create a new CAS on top of it, and you do the migration. The migration only works from 2007, or SP2 to config-man, or 2012 SP1 to 2012 SP1. But the same migration technology we talked about last time I was here for migrating from your 2007 environments. Okay, another cool thing we've added in Service Pack 1 is if you don't want to maintain all your resources locally and you still want to spread your environment out, you're allowed to now put a distribution point up in the cloud. So you can now have us host distribution points for you in Windows Azure. And the nice thing is that you don't have to provide the hardware. You don't have to have somebody trained to know how to create a new distribution point and how to maintain it and so on. We'll do all that work for you. We'll keep it up to date with the latest operating system, and patches are appropriately done for you. And they claim 99.999% available as far as the support and access of it. So basically, it just takes a DP that you put locally on premise at your own environment and stuffs it up in the cloud, and we manage it for you. It's fully encrypted, so you're secure in who can access this. You have client agent settings where you can designate who can use the cloud-based DP and not, because this is a subscription service. So you have to pay for the amount of storage you're putting on that Azure-based DP and how much transfer downloads you want from it on a monthly basis. So you want to control who can use your cloud-based DP. So you create a custom setting and deploy it to your appropriate users, saying, yes, this group of users is allowed to use the cloud-based DP. Maybe your laptops that aren't always in your office. But for the desktop computers, no sense for them to go to cloud-based DP, because if they're on the corporate LAN, they should be able to get to a corporate DP on-premise. Now we support this for software distribution only. So for packages, programs, and for application deployment. We don't support it for OSD. Think about it. Do you really want to go downloading a 12 gigabyte WIM file from your cloud-based DP to reinstall your local OS here locally? Probably not, because it's really expensive to do that. And software updates, we don't support for it. And again, if you think about it, where do you get software updates from? You get it from the cloud already. You get it from Microsoft Update. So why should we charge you to take something you get for free and put it up in a hosted service you have to pay for it? So one of the cool things we've added in Service Pack 1 for software updates is you can configure that if your client receives a deployment for patches and it can't get those patches from one of your corporate distribution points, they can fall back to going to Microsoft Update and pull the patches from there, which is obviously a free service. So you can configure that in Service Pack 1 now as a fallback if your local DPs are not available. But all you have to have a Windows Azure account, and then you go ahead and create a subscription to create a distribution point in the cloud. You designate the location where you want it. The location is really a region. You can't say Helsinki, Finland. It would be like Eastern Europe, and we would host it there for you. You get to designate how much disk space you want to consume for your storage of applications or content. You can configure alerts to say, alert me when I'm 50% capacity on either storage or monthly download amount, and alert me again when I'm 75% or whatever numbers you want. You can configure those alerts, and then you can control which clients are able to use that cloud-based DP. But again, cloud is the big term in the world today and the market, and this is our first attempt at really getting in there. But again, it's for software distribution only. And the nice thing is, you treat this just like any other DP. When you go to add content to a DP, you'll see your cloud-based DP along with all your on-premise DPs. We do show you in the console that it's a cloud-based DP versus a on-premise DP. So we designate them appropriately for you. So very easy to see. And you can put security scopes on them so that not all admins would be able to see it. For example, since we don't support software updates, we don't support OSD, you put a security scope on there so your OSD admin doesn't see the DP. So there's no chance of him accidentally putting his 8 gigabyte, 12 gigabyte WIM file up there on the cloud, consuming all your disk space that you wanted and your transfer space. Database replication controls, I'll go through this really quickly because most of you don't have a hierarchy anyway. What we're allowing you to do now is control what type of traffic is replicated up around the wire, when that traffic replication occurs, and how much traffic is generated. You're allowed to schedule when your primary site will replicate its client data up to the CAS. You're able to configure whether or not it does replicate hardware inventory, software metering, status messages up, or they stay local. And if we do replicate, whether or not compression is turned on for that traffic. So it just gives you a lot more control over what replication is being done, when it's being done, and how much is being done. Then we also have, I think it's around a dozen reports built into Service Pack 1 to monitor your replication of the SQL traffic. So you can see how much data is being transferred up and down the wire through replication and on a per link basis, as well as what the most, the traffic pattern that is most used in that replication. Is it hardware inventory, is it software inventory, is it metering data, is it status messages, whatever. So we'll let you see all that. So you can use that for analysis and determination as to how you want to configure this replication. By default, it's 24/7 scheduling, which means we replicate whenever we want to. Compression is turned on, which saves in our testing about 70% of the wire traffic is reduced with compression, but it does have a 10% CPU hit about that. So it's configurable on a per link basis. And by default, all data is replicated. But if you have a, let's say, a slow link or maybe not a real reliable link, you might want to say, nah, my hardware inventory, I don't want it replicated up the CAS. But if my admin at the CAS wants to now run a report for all corporate assets that requires hardware inventory data, and the data is not there, we'll dynamically go across the wire to that primary site server, pull that hardware inventory data we need, and generate the report for you. It's not going to be constantly replicated back and forth across the wire and stored in the CAS's database. In security compliance scenarios, we've done some things to make your lives easier again. One of those things is we now allow you to put multiple software update points in a single site. So in ConfigNet 2012 that you guys have, you know you can have up to 10 management points per primary site. But you don't have one software update point. Well, technically you have two. One for intranet-based clients and one for internet-based clients. But for your LAN-based clients, your intranet-based clients, you have one software update point. And the problem we run into is if you have a remote forest where you have clients in this remote forest and you want to keep all their traffic local, you can't. Because you can't put a software update point in that remote forest. All those clients would have to traverse your WAN through your firewalls to get to your corporate software update point, which is WSUS, to find the catalog to do the scanning. Now you can put a software update point in that remote forest. So all that client traffic would stay local. You put a sub, a DP, and an MP out there, so all the client interaction is all done locally. And you're not traversing the firewalls. All that would have to go across the firewall would be some site system communications and not client communications. So your reports have to be opened up. We also now support multiple synchronization events on a daily basis. So in 2007 or 2012, you can sync once a day. So you can go up to Microsoft Update, sync one time. And that's okay for software updates. But if you think about endpoint protection, if you use it, we can release definitions 3 times a day for endpoint protection. And obviously you're only synchronizing once a day. So you could potentially be out of date by a couple different definitions throughout the day. We now let you synchronize 3 times a day with Service Pack 1. So you can synchronize on a schedule right after we release those new updates, midnight, 8 a.m., and so on. So you have more control over that. We have, this is kind of a lousy picture. I mean, it's a good picture, but this is in the RTM product, where we give you this, what we call the client-centric view of your endpoint protection status. So you can see any malware that's occurred in your environment over the last 24 hours. You can see the health status of your endpoint protection clients that are being managed. Then down below this, where it's topped off, you would have what's your operational status. Any client agents not installed, or any health issues, or any definitions that are out of date, and so on. But now what we've got in Service Pack 1 is we still have this view, but under here there'd be another node on the right there. There'd be another node that's what we call the malware-centric view. That view will let you look at specific malware instead of looking at the bar chart. You can look at it in a dashboard and see all the malware that's been hit, and you can perform what we call some right-click actions on that malware from that dashboard. So I wish you would have had an updated screenshot here, but what we have now is what we call real-time actions for endpoint protection. So today in your console in RTM, if you go to the Access to Compliance node, you go click on a client or click on a collection, you can right-click, point to endpoint protection. There's 3 actions there: download definitions, run full scan, run quick scan. If you run one of those actions, what it does, it creates a policy that gets stored in the database, and the next time the clients pull policies from the MP, which by default is on an hourly basis, they would go ahead and run one of those 3 actions. But you're waiting for the client to pull policies. In Service Pack 1 now, when you right-click on one of those and pull those actions, it's an immediate action that takes place in the client. And I'll show you that in the next slide as a screenshot, or as an animation slide. They'll show you how that real-time actions work. So we're giving you some more real-time actions. But we also have real-time actions on that malware-centric view. So our endpoint protection code blocks some application because we thought it was a virus. And you say, wait a minute, that wasn't really a virus. That's a new program. It must not be in the definition yet, so we went ahead and blocked it. I want to allow that to occur in my environment. So I can right-click that threat in our malware view, right-click it and say allow threat. And that's a real-time action that would go out to all your clients, and it would now allow you to start running that program. So very cool, it's real-time actions. So how these things work is your client computer, each client establishes a TCP connection between the client and its management point. And again, a single primary site can have up to 10 MPs, so these TCP connections will be spread up through all your clients to all your management points. So the clients can initiate this connection to a specific port on the management point. Then your admin goes into the console and generates one of these real-time actions. Run full scan, download definitions, allow this threat, whatever it happens to be. That request is written from the admin console through the site server to the management point, and then down to the client computer, so the task is created on the MP, and then pushed down to the client computer to say full scan, download definitions, or run this, allow this threat immediately. So it all happens within seconds from the time you initiated the console to any clients that are online and have that connection established. They'll go and kick off that task right away. So it'll happen very, very quickly for you. So instead of waiting for the client to pull policies, which might be another hour, you're kicking this process off in real time, within seconds. It's designed to be scalable to support your entire infrastructure, up to 400,000 clients, which you have in a hierarchy. The single primary site, again, is 100,000, but it's designed to support that. If for whatever reason your firewall is blocking the port from the client up to the management point, we'll fall back to HTTP communication. And you obviously have to have HTTP working, otherwise your client ain't working. So we will fall back to that port, and you can use it as a fallback method. Your log files will tell you whether you're running under HTTP or TCP mode. And on the site server end, we'll tell you how many of your 10,000 clients are online. They've got that connection established that you can then reach out to with a push operation. And if we have, in one of my demos here, I'll try and show you this in action. But I'm talking a lot. So let's go to the last section here and see if we can get to that demo real quick. Simplifying administration. So the last few things that we have here are, again, making your lives easier as an admin. So we'll talk about client changes to the user interface, AppV 5.0 integration, which has a couple of cool things that you guys would be interested in. PowerShell, which I'm sure the vast majority of you are interested in. If maybe not you yourself, but certainly your IT guys are. Changes and alerts to make things a lot more useful for you. OSD, a couple of additional changes in OSD we'll talk about, and then Linux and Unix management. So on the client side of things, there's two user interfaces on the client. There's Software Center for system-targeted deployments, and there's the application catalog for user-targeted deployments. On System Center, we now allow you to multi-select and then install all selected. In the current product, it's click one thing and then click install, click another thing, click install, so it's a multi-step operation. Now in SP1, I can select 5 software updates or select 3 programs and an application and click one button to install them all. It doesn't work for OSD, which makes sense. You don't want to multi-select multiple operating systems to deploy in your client at the same time. So you can only do one of those. But it just makes it easy for the end user if there's multiple things they want to do. And then in the application catalog, we're no longer ActiveX based. In the RTM version of the application catalog with an ActiveX control, so if you were blacklisting, whitelisting applications, you had to figure out what ActiveX control was being used and make it available through your firewall and ActiveX to allow that to work. We now don't do that anymore. We now use Silverlight 5 instead of Silverlight 4, which is the ActiveX stuff. So that's a new prerequisite for your client in SP1 is Silverlight 5, which we will install for you automatically as part of your client upgrade or install in a brand new environment. AppV, 2 changes in AppV. One is support for AppV 4.6 Service Pack 2. That has no changes in functionality. Really, it's some hot fixes and support for Windows 8. So if you want to run your traditional AppV 4.6 environment with Windows 8, you have to have Service Pack 2. So we support that now, but it works the exact same way that you guys know AppV working from the Config-Man 2012 RTM stuff. What we have added also is support for AppV 5.0, which has some cool new things in it. Better support for your cache between the Config-Man client cache and the AppV cache. So some better support there. Streaming is in essence the same. That Q drive that you all know from AppV, that goes away. So there's no more Q drive, local drive that you see on your client. But the biggest thing is what they call connection groups. Connection groups allow you to have multiple, and I'll just use 2 as multiple now, 2 different virtual applications communicating. With AppV 4.6, if you had 2 uniquely sequenced applications, say Microsoft Office as one sequenced app, and Microsoft Visio as another sequenced app, if you install both those on your client, you can have both those running at the same time, but they don't see each other. So you can't load a Word doc that has a Visio diagram in it and edit with Visio, because you can't interact between those 2 virtual applications. They're in their own unique bubbles. With AppV 5, with these connection groups, you can take those 2 virtual bubbles and you can say, yes, allow those 2 virtual bubbles to communicate with each other. So you can share documents between the 2. You can access Visio from Microsoft Word as a separate sequenced application. So it makes it easier so that your sequencing guy doesn't have to coordinate with your Config-Man guy to make sure that you sequence the application together and you're deploying the right stuff. We tried to do that with dynamic suite compositions and the RTM stuff and just didn't work that well. But the virtual connection groups work a whole lot better. Very, very cool. PowerShell, we had support for PowerShell in the RTM product. We just didn't document a whole lot for you. We didn't provide a lot of commandlets for you. Now, our goal is that with the SP1 RTM, anything you can do in the admin console, you can do through PowerShell, and that we would have a commandlet for you to do that. In the beta release, for those few of you that raised your hand and asked about the beta of SP1, there were, I want to say it was 350 or 330, something like that, commandlets in there. In the build I'm running now, which is post-beta, it's up to 452, 456, something like that, as far as commandlets. So we're increasing the number of commandlets we have, and we'll have documentation on all those as well coming up in the SDK when it comes out for Service Pack 1. But again, the goal is that you don't have to use the console if you don't want to. You can do everything through PowerShell. Alerts, we have the same type of alerts that we had in RTM. The big difference in alerts is that in RTM, you can do email subscriptions for alerts, but only for endpoint protection. Now with Service Pack 1, all your alerts can be set up with email subscriptions. So not just that, hey, alert the security team when a virus or malware outbreak occurs, but you can also alert your security team when your patches fail to install. Or you can alert your deployment team when your application SLA has not been met, or baselines, or whatever it is. Any alert you want now can be an email subscription to notify somebody through email as opposed to just in-console alerts. Operating system deployment, we talked about the first two already. Pre-staged media. Pre-staged media, the RTM product, what pre-staged media is you take your OS image and you run it through a wizard that creates what we call a hybrid WIM. You then take that hybrid WIM and you give it to your OEM manufacturer. In my case, Dell is who I use. So I would give that hybrid WIM to Dell, and then when I order new laptops from Dell, my OS image has already been downloaded to the hard drive. So it shortens that deployment time from having to download and install that WIM file. So I just have to plug it in and finish out the task sequence and join it to my domain and do some other stuff. But in RTM, the pre-staged media can only handle the WIM file from the OS. Now in Service Pack 1, you can put applications, driver packages, and regular packages in that pre-staged media as well. So now you can get those applications and packages and so on, and drivers, in that same download to your hard drive for your OEM. So it's shortening the deployment time once you get that laptop back from the manufacturer until it's ready to roll for your end users. Okay, so summary. The middle column there is for ConfigNet 2007. So those of you that are sitting there, that's what we had. Then if you're looking at what's in 2012, that's the next column. And then the last column is what we've added into Service Pack 1. So some of the new features we've added there. We didn't talk really about Linux and Unix and Macs. We'll do that in the third presentation after lunch. So right after the break, we'll come back, we'll talk about Windows 8 management. And then after lunch, we'll talk about the Windows Intune integration, Macintosh support, Linux Unix support. So we'll get you a lot more details on those. And then in the Windows 8 one, since I'm out of time now, we'll kick in and we'll do some demos. Since I've already covered some of the slides in this one, I'll go through the other slide deck real quick so we can do more demo time. And I'll show you the real-time actions, if you guys remind me so I don't forget it. And then I'll show you Windows 8 application deployment. If I have time, I can show you the AppV5 connection group stuff as well. I don't know if I have time for all that. I'll try and show you some of the changes in OSD that we made to make your lives easier. So, questions before we break for lunch? We're not going to break for lunch now. Questions before we break for break?